I would like to announce that I am starting a new podcast. I may end it after the first episode. I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about it. But if it ends up doing well, maybe we'll keep doing it.
Okay, so Mr. Beat's newest podcast, Evergreen, is off to a rough start. Just to start with, the debut episode's viewership flopped. I mean, consider this guy has over 1 million subscribers, and he can barely get a debut episode of a podcast out to even a fraction of them. This isn't really a shock, though, as the last episode of his other podcast, 10 Questions, got 10,000 views. And that was with another YouTuber, rather than some... I guess I'll start with his co-host, who... his name doesn't matter, but he's the worst podcaster I've ever heard in my entire life. He's boring and irritating.
I am I have grown up in a place of privilege,
That one sentence tells you all you need to know about him and his lame personality, and he's perfectly emblematic of everything wrong with Mr. Beat podcasts, including this one, which I'll get into now. So right off the bat, how I knew this fucking podcast was going to be for the birds was immediately upon hearing this line.
I am a Lawrencian, proud Lawrencian that enjoys making puppet films, a collaborator with Mr. Matthew Beat.
Okay, so not a political commentator or political YouTuber, he's not a politician, not a historian, economist, or even teacher or something. Nor is he someone who anybody listening to this would have any reason to want to listen to him, including even being entertaining. He was literally hired for the job because Matt likes him, and that's it. Yeah, I'm sure that'll go well. That's not the way business works, folks. When it comes to the entertainment business, in this case being YouTube, you don't hire a no-name to do a podcast just because they're your pal, regardless of their lack of fame or entertainment value. That sort of person isn't going to pull people in. There's no excuse for this, especially given other more qualified people on YouTube Matt has connections with and has done podcasts with previously. That brings us to the second problem with this and all Matt Beat podcasts, circle jerking. I've covered this well on my video on his 10 Questions series. Matt likes to surround himself with people who lean to the left on the political spectrum like he does.
Okay, let's go off in a different direction. I know that both you and I we could probably have the label left. We're both kind of lefty. Are you comfortable with that?
I lean left for sure.
Yeah,
well, I did a series of political tests, and that's so we confirmed it.
It just doesn't make for very interesting conversation a lot of the time, and leads to most podcasts feeling the same, smug and self-righteous echo chambers.
I found out watching you all the time that you grew up in Florida. So what was it like growing up as a Florida man?
Florida, I always make fun of it, and I call it like a terrible state that should be cut off the map and then pushed into. And obviously, like the stuff that's going on politically there, in the higher reaches of government is pretty terrible, I think.
I voted for Republicans throughout my life, but it seems like the party and it's mostly related to Trump, of course, but it's not all him because now some are turning on him. But it's like they're not in the same reality as most of us. Like
seems like they've left reality. Honestly,
yeah,
it seems like
it's like me talking to someone who has a mental illness or who is.
It does feel like that.
Emotionally
it does
stunted,
feel like that,
or dementia or something. Like it's.
We are the Christian Saudi Arabia.
If it ended there, then whatever, but he likes to put forth the narrative that he actively engages with people with notably different political opinions than him.
That's what I kind of like about living here is that I'm constantly interacting with people that disagree with me, and that's good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Considering Matt's favorite activity is bashing Donald Trump and his supporters, you'd think if he has the mindset of, I love to talk with those who disagree with me, then he'd have brought some on to talk with him at some point. But as far as I can tell, he never once brought on a Trump-supporting YouTuber to talk to him on his previous 10 Questions podcast, even once. Really reaching across the aisle there. He claims the reason for this is that he can't have a conversation with them due to being on completely different wavelengths, to the point of it being fruitless. The idea being that they lack basic knowledge like facts that he knows, so it's harder to have a conversation grounded in a shared reality.
I love a good debate if you can be in the same reality, but if you can't even be in the same reality, like I get some of these responses on my Twitter too. I'm just like, if you think that the vaccine is, like injecting something into us that's going to make us die within a year or something. I can't even have a conversation with you.
Can't or won't. Dude, this guy's job before YouTube was being a teacher, teaching young people who are notoriously not fond of learning. And isn't he the one who always says that you have to trick people into learning anyway? So if it was never easy anyway, what's the problem? It seems weird to me that he says he can't have a conversation with someone who thinks vaccines are bad effectively. He's had conversations with people who genuinely believe that America is basically Saudi Arabia.
We are the Christian Saudi Arabia.
So extremism or extremist beliefs don't seem to be the problem here. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I don't want to be cynical all the time, but if I apply Occam's razor here, then I think the simplest answer would be that he just doesn't like Trump supporters and doesn't want to talk to them. He's prone to insulting them, calling them mentally defective as shown previously, or worse, implying they're Nazis, so it seems like a little a stretch that he just doesn't want to talk to them. But if I were to be less cynical, I would say that he believes what he's saying and just doesn't recognize the inconsistencies, as he's one to do, like with criticizing Trump supporters.
A lot of Republicans have a lot of bad publicity, and I think it's time that needs to end. The vast majority of people who support Donald Trump are good, hardworking Americans and lovely people. And I'm tired of people talking trash about Trump supporters, specifically in the comment sections of my videos. So stop it. Be nice. But it seems like the party and it's mostly related to Trump, of course, but it's not all him, because now some are turning on him. But it's like they're not in the same reality as most of us. It's like me talking to someone who has a mental illness, or who is
It does feel like that.
Emotionally
It does
stunted,
feel like that.
or dementia or something. Like, it's
My final answer on that would lean toward the latter, in that he is being genuine, but inconsistent, and legitimately doesn't realize that he puts down Trump supporters, even though he tells others not to. This is because he has talked to one Trump supporter on his channel, this guy Ari, who wasn't on 10 Questions, nor was he a YouTuber, which is why I didn't put him in my video critiquing 10 Questions.
and I'm tired of people talking trash about Trump supporters, specifically in the comment sections of my videos. So stop it. Be nice. I have one actually with me here shortly. He's just joined me. This is not just any Republican. This young fella, his name is Ari.
But since he has talked to one Trump supporter on camera on his channel, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he thinks that he can't have a conversation with most of them, as opposed to just not wanting to. But even then, if he believes that there are some sane ones out there, then why doesn't he talk to them if he loves differing opinions so much? I'm not going to say you have to talk to them to be successful, and yeah, circle jerking is probably the most subjective problem on this list. But to sit there and genuinely believe you're really reaching across the aisle when you've only talked to one Trump supporter, someone who supports a politician you don't, seems ridiculous. It may have made sense to try out your new podcast with one, reach across the aisle. But he's not going to do that. He's just going to circle jerk with the least qualified of his leftist pals. Great. The third problem being bad topics. Okay, so you're trying out a brand new podcast. You hope your followers will watch. You already know what they like. Things generally related to politics. Things like presidents, commentators, etc. What are you going to talk about?
For me, one of the topics I was thinking about fashion. Like when you think about...
That's the first thing you thought of was fashion?
Well, no.
Christ, man. So Matt has a history of making content he likes instead of making content his audience wants to see. And in his 10 Questions series, he liked to discuss topics like music or food that had little to do with what his audience wanted to hear about. He even admitted that the interviews were an excuse to rub bean sacks with his pals rather than put out entertaining content.
And this is 10 Questions. It's turned into a series, wouldn't you know? I did one of these with JJ McCullough about a year and a half ago, and I just keep doing it because I enjoy it so much. It's a great excuse just to talk to really cool people, a chance to hang out with my friends, because I don't really have much of a social life. So,
given this, it was only natural that he would continue to talk about whatever he felt like on his new podcast, rather than talk about what his audience wants to hear about. He named his podcast after the idea of greed, Evergreed, and the topic he chose for the first episode was people having a lack of curiosity.
Like, think about what's going on this year in 2025 compared to 25 years ago, the beginning of the century. What has changed? And so the theme, or I should say the trend for this episode, is a trend we both have noticed: the decline of curiosity, or it seems to be the decline of curiosity. So that's what we're going to talk about this episode.
Yeah, like why do we as a society feel less curious? Like what are the hindrances, things like that, and what are those specific trends that you could see that make it more plausible so you could see?
It's a pretty dry topic for a podcast. Like compared to having an episode about Joe Rogan or Donald Trump or something with broader appeal. But a lack of curiosity is especially dry for a podcast featuring two already dry guys, one of which nobody has ever heard of. And it's not like Matt himself is known widely on YouTube either. He made a Twitter post where he showed Wikipedia editors discussing if his Wikipedia page should be taken down, because he's not famous enough to have one, I guess. And considering how much he likes Wikipedia, I would imagine this particularly stung.
JJ McCullough is canceled! No, just kidding. He has been getting a lot of flack, though, lately. Before his latest release, he released a video on Saturday just completely trashing Wikipedia, which is my favorite site of all time, my favorite website.
And Matt's response to this was to show it off and almost flat out say that it made him miserable, which he'd use for motivation. I bring this up because not just anybody can start a podcast. It's harder to get them off the ground than a regular YouTube channel, making regular non-podcast videos. This likely goes triple for Mr. Beat, who, as I've already covered, doesn't have the most die-hard audience anyway. Less and less of his own followers are tuning in to listen to him talk about bullshit only he cares about. His last episode of 10 Questions did around 10,000 views, and the debut episode of Evergreen got around 3,000 views.
So you live in Finland,
Yeah.
Switching gears, what has surprised you the most about living in Finland?
For me, one of the topics I was thinking about fashion. Like when you think about
That's the first thing you thought of was fashion?
well, no, and
Maybe it's because he didn't wear the right shirt. Could be anything. The final problem with Evergreen and all Matt podcasts is that he's not a podcast person.
Who is this nerd? Yeah. Hey, I'm not a nerd anymore, okay?
Matt has a dry personality, he doesn't handle stress very well, and he doesn't seem to like debating either. He's basically admitted this himself.
Liam, slightly unrelated, but would you ever consider having an online debate with another creator on something political/historical? Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Liam. Mostly no, because debates are just pure rhetoric, and I'm not very good at rhetoric. I'm not good at talking. It's amazing that I do communication for a living because I had a speech impediment when I was a kid. I had to see a speech pathologist, for crying out loud. I've always struggled with communication. I don't even know how to talk to my wife, Mrs. Beat. Sometimes I make her upset because I say something stupid. So why would I do well in a debate? I probably would not. Even if I was right, even if I had the best arguments, I probably would still lose the debate.
These characteristics don't make for a super entertaining personality that could hold up a podcast. Like Steven Crowder or Cenk Uygur, two energetic loudmouths with big personalities who can hold people's attention. Matt is like the opposite of that. He comes off like a big nerd without much of a cult of personality that could continually get him views when talking to people. He should be the dry co-host to the actual main character. Again, someone like Steven Crowder or something. As far as other potential options for co-hosts go that he's associated with before and has a decent chance of getting, I might have gone with Attenshay, who, compared to Matt, would have the entertaining personality, basically like a Steven Crowder type who curses and get energetic. It wouldn't help with the leftist circle jerking problem, but he definitely needs someone with some name value and is more colorful than Matt. I guarantee that podcast would have gotten more views than this one with some bland guy nobody knows or cares about. I don't know whether Matt is going to continue this podcast or not. My money's on no, considering this viewership isn't going to do much revenue-wise. He might go on a couple more episodes, and that'll probably be it, if he even makes another one. And by the way, it probably didn't help that he posted it to a separate channel, away from the majority of his subscribers. I can only imagine this was done so people wouldn't see its potential low views if it got that, which it did. Or perhaps it was a safety measure meant to ensure that if it did poorly, it wouldn't affect his other videos in the algorithm. Either way, it's a sad commentary when you have to pre-plan for your video doing poorly, which you probably believe it will. It's not all doom and gloom though. I criticized him in the past for having 3-hour conversations, which were conducive to stuffing them with get-to-know-you shit rather than more relevant contemporary conversation. But this shorter running time helped alleviate some of that, so that's good. But overall, if I was him, I wouldn't even bother with a podcast. I would focus on my main videos and stop with all the side projects, like his other music channel, The Beat Goes On. But then again, I guess I see YouTube as more business than he does, which means putting aside what you want to sell to your customers in favor of selling them what they want to buy. But if he doesn't give a shit about really trying to make money, and would rather jerk around instead, well, then so be it.